It's time to huddle up. I'm Garrett C. Wright. This is the Daily Huddle for Monday, August 28th. Thanks for making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. We certainly appreciate it. If you were watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, the thumbs up on the video. It helps get in front of more faces, and more faces talking college football is always a good thing. If you're listening on the podcast, drop a 5-star review, share us with your friends. However you can help us out, we certainly do appreciate it. Got week 0 in the books, and that leads to some overreactions, which we talked about yesterday. But today, one of the things that, frankly, I forgot about, and I don't know about you, but I forgot that they had made the decision that we're not going to stop the clock after first downs in college football anymore. And I will be the first to admit that I am cynical at times. Some would argue that that's all the time, but it's whatever. I think I had a cynical view of them, of the NCAA, deciding we're not going to stop the clock after first downs anymore, except for the final 2 minutes of the halves. It was argued that this was about safety, and I thought that that was poppycock, malarkey, balderdash, whatever else. What are the other words you want to use that would describe bull excrement? It's not about safety. I don't think. Now, maybe over the course of a season, it might be. I realize that week 0 is an incredibly small sample size, but on average, on Saturday, they were 63 plays per offense. Each team averaged 63 plays. Last year, that average was 68 plays, just under 69 plays, a nice number. The average game time last year was 3 hours and 27 minutes, and in week 0, it was 3 hours and 24 minutes. So they saved 3 minutes of real time and 5 plays by implementing these rule changes. 5 plays, so 10 plays total in the entire game. 5 plays per offense. Now, over the course of a 12-game season, conceivably, if you were going to play all 5 of those plays, you would have saved a game's worth of plays. When you put it like that, that's a big number. But when you say to me, we're going to eliminate 5 plays to make a drastic rule change, and it is a drastic rule change. If you asked somebody on the street, you stopped them and said, what's the difference? What are the biggest differences between college football and the NFL? The first thing they're going to say is the clock stops after a first down in college, but not in the NFL. It's at the top of the list. And if it's not at the top of the list, it's second behind. You only have to have 1 foot in bounds to make a catch in college, but not in the NFL. And then maybe like when your knee touches in college, you're down. But in the NFL, you can get back up and keep on running. That's it. So something that is that distinct between college football and the NFL, the NCAA decided to change, which generally I'm fine with change. I know a lot of people are not fine with change. I have no qualms about change as long as I can parse out why the change is being made. And when you tell me that the chief reason you're making this change is safety, I don't believe you. 5 plays a game is not, in my opinion, enough to make this drastic rule change. Because I think it made college football unique, distinct, and I liked it that way. I legitimately thought that the change was to, I don't know if appease is the right word, but appease ESPN, Fox, NBC, CBS. I thought it was about the TV partners. It was the driving factor. We shorten games. That gives us more time for commercials and gives us more time to fit games in, more windows to fit games in on a Saturday. And I will die on this hill that at some point, somebody's going to start playing games at 11 a.m. on Saturdays, because traditionally the games start at noon and you'll go through, at the latest, a 9 o'clock start on the West Coast. Sometime, and then you get your Hawaiis. For the most part, those games start at 9, maybe every once in a while, 10 p.m. Eastern time. Somebody's going to start playing games at 11 a.m. I mean, if the MAC is willing to play games on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, why wouldn't the Sun Belt say, I'll play at 11 a.m.? I don't care. And I think it's going to have to be somebody who's willing to chat. Like ESPN's not going to do it because it's going to go against College Game Day, and they make a lot of money on College Game Day. And so you're not going to shorten College Game Day on ESPN. You're not going to put something on ESPN2 to compete with College Game Day. Fox has put a lot of money and effort into the Big Noon Kickoff brand. So CBS and NBC, you're up. That's just me, but I'm telling you, it will happen at some point that somebody will say, why don't we just start the game at 11? If you're willing to play at noon in Eastern time, why wouldn't you be willing to play at 11? And it'll start a whole tumble effect, but that's for a different discussion for a different day. But the idea in my mind of we're going to stopping the clock after first downs is we're speed these games up, and then we can get 4 games and win 4 games in a day in our windows, straight quadruple headers every Saturday. And that was the impetus for the rule change. And there are pros and cons to the rule change. I like the clock stopping because I think it's a positive overall. One, it differentiates college football from the NFL. I prefer the college football style of play than the NFL. I think that for it to be a catch, you should have 1 foot in bounds. I think that when you are down, you're down. I think when you get a first down, the clock stops. I like that style and brand of play more than the NFL, where the rules have been implemented to speed the game up so we can get to the next game and we can get more games on TV. I prefer that a college game stand on its own. I like that. But the new rules do reward, like most new rules in 2023 and going forward, it rewards offense. If you have an efficient offense, you're really going to like this rule, because if you can move the chains consistently, the rule helps you. The clock not stopping helps you. You're taking more time off the clock. You're giving your defense longer rests, and it limits the number of times that your opponent has the football, which for schools that play more efficient offense rather than explosive offense, because there are teams that I love the idea of Art Briles back in the day, and just philosophy, not conduct. I loved the idea of Art Briles back in the day. Basically, somebody asked him, what's your offensive philosophy? And he said, we're trying to score a touchdown on every play. Whatever play we think is going to be the one that leads us, gives us the best chance of putting the ball across the goal line, that's what we're going to do on that play. Because that's the point of the game, is to put points on the board. Some would argue that the point of the game is to put as many points on the board. Different discussion. But you're trying to put the ball across the goal line. So they're going to be a little bit less efficient but more explosive than the Iowa Hawkeyes. And if Iowa can be efficient, this rule helps teams that play the game that way. Because if you can consistently put together, your 9-play, 68-yard touchdown drives, it's super helpful. Your defense gets a longer rest. You are limiting your opponent's possessions, especially if you are playing a team who has one of those explosive offenses that will take that 68-yard drive and do it in 4 plays or 5 plays. You can do it in 9 plays or 11 plays. It benefits you, but it benefits the offense. For a while back in the day, and probably even still in some people's eyes to this day, the knock on the Big 12 was schools don't care about defense. Their defenses are dreadful. All they do is chuck the pigskin around, etc. In reality, the style of football played by most of the schools in that league just simply led to more possessions in a game. And the more possessions you have, the higher your scores are going to be. The Big 12, at kind of the peak of that narrative being their defenses are trash. The reality was that per possession, their offense has had less points per possession than the SEC did. So statistically, their defenses per possession were better than the SEC. It just was at the time in the Big 12. Not every single value and not every single possession was as valued as much as a possession in the SEC, where you get those kind of like slow, methodical basketball teams like Virginia when they won the national championship, that they weren't running up and down the floor. They were slow, they were methodical. Every possession mattered. That's how the SEC chose to play their football. The Big 12 was the exact opposite. If we go 3 and out, who gives a damn? We're going to get the ball back in the next minute and 30 seconds. Well, now, if you can consistently move the chains, if you are a team that can go down the field, instead of taking 3 minutes and 20 seconds off the clock, you're going to take 5 minutes and 40 seconds off the clock. So the clock continues to move. You keep the ball out of your opponent's hands. You're limiting their possessions while simultaneously limiting your possessions as well. But it rewards higher functioning offense, which frankly, I think higher functioning offenses are a good thing for college football. That should be attainable. That should be what schools are reaching for, is we function really well, because that's playing the game at a really high level. Would you rather be some weeks we're going to score 56 and some weeks we're going to score 14? Or would you like to score 35 every week? Georgia last year, an incredibly efficient offense. This rule change rewards efficiency and high functionality. And I think that's important to raise the level of the game, because for a while it was easy to just, we're going to drop back. I'm going to chuck it around. I'm going to throw it as far as I can. Either my guy's going to catch it, your guy's going to catch it, your guy's going to interfere with my guy, or it's going to hit the floor. It's those 4 options. And it's not necessarily a great thing. I think it also builds some innovation, and it also encourages going for it on 4th down and 4th and short and high percentage situations where you're going to get it. Because if the clock is going to continue to run, that's another net benefit that I really like. I think college football offensively has been the exact opposite of college basketball, where in the 1980s, everybody ran pretty much one of 4 offenses, and that was it. And now the game has been innovated. It has grown, it has diversified, and college basketball, I think offense has simplified, where it's like, I'm going to set a high ball screen and I'm going to find the most freak athlete I can to get to the rim. Where college football has been, I'm going to find the fastest guys I can. I'm going to give them the ball wherever I can get them the ball, and see if my fast, agile guys are better than your fast, agile guys. So the sport has grown for the better, until it started to devolve a little bit and go, well, why are we worried about this when I can just kind of just keep throwing jump balls, or I can meander my way down the field via penalty? Don't love it. But if you can consistently move the football, this new rule helps, and I like it. I didn't think I would like it coming into the season, because, as I mentioned, I liked the idea. I liked the brand and the style that college football provided. I don't want to see the sport shift essentially to the same rules as the NFL, because we know it's a feeder program for the NFL, but that doesn't mean that it can't stand on its own. That doesn't mean it has to be the exact copycat of the same rules, regulations, whatever, of what everybody's aspiring to. I like the clock stopping. And I still, in reality, would prefer that that be the rule, but it's not. So you find the positive in it. And the positive is, should good offense be rewarded in 2023? Yeah, it should. Every rule pretty much now is designed to help offenses. Are there some that I don't like? Yes. Like, I hate roughing the passer, especially in the NFL. I like roughing the punter in the rule is you're not the punter until you've punted the ball. That's a logical rule to have. The punter doesn't get protection until he's punted the ball. That makes sense. If I make a sack, there is no passer because he didn't throw the ball. How do I rough someone who didn't do the thing you're saying they did? There are rules that I don't like that help the offense. But for the most part, rules are designed to make things easier for offenses, whether it's college football, the NHL, Major League Baseball, whoever. Rules are created for offense because that's what the folks want to see. Anytime I hear somebody tell me, "Oh, I like a good pitcher's duel," or I like shutouts. I don't like shootouts. I don't like high scoring. I can't trust you because that's not true. You can pretend that you like pitchers duels, and you could pretend that you like shutouts and low scoring games and real grind it out. You don't. You don't. And you're trying to be a contrarian. Nobody is tuning in on Saturday afternoons because they want to watch someone struggle. They don't want to see their favorite team really have to grind out a 14-6 win. You don't want to watch that. I don't want to watch that. You don't want to watch that. So why are we pretending that you do? Nobody, you could pretend that you're a fan of defense. You're not. Because when there are low scoring games, nobody says, "Oh man, those defenses were great." The immediate reaction when you see that score is, "Oh, those offenses suck." Like, how bad is insert team here that they only scored 14 points and won? You don't want to see. I it's the same argument I use during like golf majors. Is like the U.S. Open has been traditionally really difficult. I don't want to turn on the TV and watch the guys who are the best at their sport suck. I don't want to see that. You probably don't want to see that either. Like, do I want to see Tom Brady suck on Sundays? Yeah, I do. But I don't get that chance anymore. But the idea of like, I'm going to sit down and my version of entertainment is going to be to watch that team struggle to be good is somewhat sadistic. That's some psychopath stuff of like, you know what? I don't want this to be all that entertaining. You need to talk to someone because that's not like okay. Your instant reaction when you see a low score, or if you're watching that game, you're not entertained by teams not being very good at one side of the ball. And the one side of the ball that they are very good at can be a draw as long as the other side of that team's that team's ball is adequate at least. If you have the best defense in the country, that alone is not enough to draw eyeballs to you unless you are just one of the best defenses of all time and your defense is stacked with guys who are going to be first rounders. It's simply the reality of the situation. We if I was to ask a random college football fan who's got the best offense in college football, you're going to get a smattering of answers, but they're probably correct in the top, 10 offenses. Who's got the best defense in America? Uh, uh, I don't know. Is likely the answer. We don't care about defense. When you're playing NCAA 14, the video game, and you're on dynasty mode, Do you play defense? Probably not. You know why? 'Cause nobody cares about defense. Don't pretend like you do when you don't. I will say, though, at some point this season, there will be, and I think simply by the rules being different, there will be a scenario or a situation where something will happen. And one of the chief takeaways from that game will be ABC, XYZ would have been different if the clock stopped after first downs. And maybe it won't be that noticeable because it still will stop in the final 2 minutes of a half or in the final 2 minutes of the first half and the second half. And we're kind of goldfish and like anything that happens before like this final 2 minutes, if it's a close game, we forget about. But I'm telling you, something will happen, and the takeaway will be that would have been different if the clock stopped after first downs. Whether it's a comeback in the fourth quarter that came up short and you see that a team lost a couple of plays because the clock kept ticking and they just ran out of time or whatever, but something will happen in a, and I don't even know if it's a big time game. I'm not here to say that, like the college football playoff will be affected. I'm not that hot takery of an artist. Like I'm just not going to say that. But I do think that a game will be altered and some coach will say, we were down by 20 in the fourth quarter. And if we had gotten those 5 or 6 plays that we would have gotten if the clock had stopped, it would have made all the difference in the world and we could have won this thing. Just don't be surprised if/when that happens. Because anytime there is change, it's easy to blame the change for why something didn't go your way. And on the flip side, it might be a coach saying, my God, if the clock didn't stop, if the clock had stopped a couple of those first downs, we'd have been in a world of hurt. So maybe it will get credit for a win that it maybe wouldn't have in the past, or in just circumstances will be different. And I just think that at some point somebody will say, thankfully, the clock didn't stop, or if only the clock had stopped after a first down. It's going to happen. It just remains to be seen how big of an effect it will have on a game, but it'll get blame or credit somewhere during the college football season. I guarantee it. But overall, I think that it might be an okay rule change. I might have had a cynical view on it, but seeing it in practice and then thinking about it in a different manner makes you go, okay, you know what? Actually, does this reward offense? Yes. Does this make things more challenging for a defense? Yes, especially in those kind of late stages of the second and fourth quarter. If it changes strategy completely of if you had 3 timeouts or no timeouts and you were banking on the clock stopping on a first down, or defensively, if you're trying to get off the field and get the ball back, it changes things. You got to get it done in those 3 plays rather than it's okay if they get a first down, the clock will stop and we'll do this again. It will make things interesting, just in a different manner, and that's okay. But I'm telling you right now, I'm just kidding. I'm telling you right now that something will happen and someone will blame or give immense credit to the clock changing and the clock change rules for 2023. Now, I think I mentioned earlier, it's an incredibly small sample size of overall, it was 5 plays per offense that were shrunk in 3 minutes of real time. But I'm interested to see how that plays out over the course of the 900 game season or whatever, and see, okay, just how many plays were actually dropped, how much time was actually dropped. Was it actually a safety positive? were there fewer injuries, and go from there. I don't think there's any possibility that the NCAA goes, oh, you know what? Actually, we got that one wrong. Let's reverse it. But it will be fun to track and follow and just think, okay, how did that affect the game overall? And we'll look at it. But I think I might have been swayed on how I viewed it before it was put into practice. And I'm all right with it because I wasn't before. Because when you have a cynical view of the only thing helped by this is TV, I'm never going to be on, I'm never going to be on TV's side of sports. I'm never going to be on like, you know what, this is great for TV. Well, is it great for the game? Because that's what I want to watch. I don't want to watch a show. I want to watch a game. I want to watch a competition. And I think that matters. And I just hope we don't keep meandering towards that. Whatever's best for TV is best for the sport. Because usually it ain't. That'll do it for today's edition of the Daily Huddle. Thanks for making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, thumbs up. It goes a long way in helping us get in front of more faces of college football fans, and being in front of more people talking college football is always a good thing. If you're watching or you're listening on the podcast, give us a 5-star review. We'll read your 5-star reviews on the show, no matter what you say. I'll probably bleep them actually if it's that bad, but we'll read them because I want to hear from you, and we'll chat with you tomorrow right here on the Daily Huddle on SaturdayGlory.com.